Bradley, a renowned constitutional scholar, very principled constitutional scholar, speaking on the Utah tax referendum. And not only the referendum, but also the tax restructuring bill passed by the legislature back in December. And a lot of the things that they're doing in response to the referendum since the legislative session has started this year in January of 2020. And this was an issue that a lot of people were a little bit upset with us in our position on. As an organization, we were against the tax bill by the state legislature. And some of the things that have happened as a result of that, and pointing out also some more effective measures that people can take to be able to actually rein in government and to be able to hold them more accountable. So, without further ado, Dr. Scott Bradley.
Defending Utah covers the stories others are just too often afraid to touch.
They don't nibble around the edges when it comes to pointing out threats to our liberty. They're not afraid to name names and call out organizations.
This is Defending Utah Radio. Defending Utah. Think right and wrong, not right and left. Join Defending Utah, because if you're not already on a government watch list, you should be.
Okay, a multifaceted ABCD question. You know, it's a multiple choice question. I don't think it's a multiple choice question. I am absolutely shocked and chagrined that the Utah legislature passed this abominable tax bill. They railroaded it through against what I believe was an abundance of concerns by the constituency. They had a special session. They had planned to do this. They did it without due deliberation. And here's one of the big deals about this. They've got a special session that they're in right now. They just passed this a month ago. They've got it's not a special session, it's a regular session, their 2020 session, in which they are going to modify that tax bill and expand it. So they've got the framework there now, and it's an abomination. We don't know what it's going to do. We really don't. And I am on, because I communicate regularly with Utah legislators, some of them, you know, once they get your email, they keep it forever, and you get a copy of what they send to their constituents. And even though I'm not their constituent, I see some of the things that they're sending to their constituents. And some were honorable enough to send out surveys to their constituents asking them what they thought of this, at that time, proposed tax bill. By an overwhelming response, and because I got the information back that was, you know, being collated by this legislator, particularly that I'm thinking of, it was like 75% of his constituents were against it. And he was honorable enough to vote against it. But others of them just plain didn't want to even hear it. And I could tell by the tenor of what they were sending out, in spite of the fact they said, oh, I haven't made my mind up yet. I would love your input and everything like that. It's like, yeah, right. I can tell, you know, you read between the lines, you get some of that, the tenor of the way they're coming to, you know, they've already made their mind up, even in spite of what they tell you, and they're going to vote for it. And they did. And it was a bad approach. It's really another way to get more money out of their constituents. What should be happening is a very serious review about how we can reduce the burden on our constituents, not how we can take more. And they did things that it got people a little chapped, and it resulted in a petition effort that they have to get, I don't remember the number exactly, but let's say 115,000 signatures spread over about 2/3 of the state's counties. So it's got to be kind of, you know, a broad kind of thing. You can't get all your signatures out of the Salt Lake County. But they're then going to decide whether, well, based upon that, and I think they're going to make their numbers on that, is these referendum and these petition efforts, in my opinion, and I'll tell you why in just a minute, are absolutely dead wrong. dead wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And people say, well, we've just but we want to put this on the ballot in December, no, next November. So coming up in November, on the November election, we want the people to vote for or against what was there. Now, first of all, these kind of citizen initiatives bring government away from the constitutional republic that we are guaranteed in the Constitution. Article 4 says that every state has a republic. This brings it very closely to a pure democracy. And the founding father, read Federalist Paper 10. Read what Madison so eloquently spoke against in his democracy stuff, and how it was the worst form of government. And in every instance, these citizen-created laws that are done by democracy end up being just a disaster. They're bad all the way around. And we had a recent example of that where Utah decided they wanted Obamacare expanded by citizen initiative. And it's like, huh? Really? As long as somebody else is paying for it, let's just do that. That was kind of the outcome. Bad legislation always comes out of these citizen initiatives. That's one of the problems. Well, first problem is it's a democracy that is being fostered as opposition to what the Constitution created. So we're throwing out the Republican form of government. Republican form of government, trusted representatives that we choose make decisions within the bounds of their constitutional authority. In other words, they don't have carte blanche. They can't just say, hey, I'm your new congressman now. I can do whatever I darn well please. And that's what a lot of people, both in the state and out of the state, believe. That's not the case. They take an oath to keep their actions within the bounds that were established. So the Utah legislature is granted authority to basically create the laws that our tax structure is made out of. They have the authority to do it. Now, Jefferson and Madison at a federal level, and this applies at the state level too, but Jefferson and Madison explained very carefully that if the legislative body, let's take the United States Congress for this matter, violates the trust that's been given to them, there's two ways to handle it. One is if they violate the trust doing something that they're granted authority to do. Okay, so they stepped over the line in an area where they had authority to do. And let's just take the example that Madison used. When South Carolina attempted to nullify, nullification's a valid constitutional solution to things, but only in certain instances. And we'll explain that just very briefly. South Carolina attempted to nullify these abominable tariff acts that the United States Congress had foisted upon, and the belief was that the southern states were being treated unfairly at that. The reason that Madison was opposed to that effort by South Carolina was because the Congress had authority to establish tariffs. So they were acting within their tariff creation authority to do something. And Jefferson and Madison said, if they have the authority to do something, but they've overstepped their bounds, do something unfair, be evil, mean, bad, or nasty, whatever it is, the correct solution to that is found in the ballot box. So the people are to look at that and go, you turkeys, yeah, you can create tariffs, but let's not do these kind because they're unfair, they're wrong, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's one way to correct those issues. If they're granted an authority, just like Utah's legislature is granted the authority to create a tax structure, okay, constitutionally. But in my opinion, they overstepped that bounds. They did the wrong thing. Jefferson and Madison said, we remove them from office by ballot. And I believe that's what should happen to everyone that voted for that, okay? The other thing is if the legislature usurps a power that's not granted constitutionally to them, and they go out and, well, let's just take the First Amendment and Jefferson and Madison's day, with the Alien and Sedition Acts. They violated their oath of office, the legislators did. They created laws that destroyed the First Amendment. And so if the legislator is on a path and does some things that is outside the authoritative bounds of the Constitution, then the appropriate response is nullification. Okay, so there's no citizen referendum in any of our programs, at least in the tradition of the Founding Fathers. There's no, we're going to get signatures and we're going to get this so that we can write our own laws and you guys that are in the legislature don't matter anymore and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that is not written into anybody's constitution, really. And so in Utah, they're violating the Republican form of government, and the legislature violated the trust the people gave them by stepping over the bounds into an area they shouldn't have been in, but it was their authority to create tax law. So the authoritative and best way to do that is through the ballot box, not through a referendum, which is democracy, and not through nullification, because they had that responsibility granted to them constitutionally. The other thing that really is a concern is that no legislative body can bind, if you will, a future legislative body. Okay, so let's just say for a nanosecond that Utah tax, well, it's the whole citizenry is what they're trying to get involved in this vote, in this referendum thing. Let's say they are a legislative body by the fact that they've said, we're going to do a referendum, we're going to put it on the ballot, we're going to decide, and it's going to be. Well, if they are a legislative body by their definition and how they're handling this, the next legislature can't be bound by that legislative body's action. And they could and absolutely will take a different tack on that when they meet again in 2021. So let's say the Utah legislative body as citizens in the ballot on November, in the November election of 2020, said, we don't like what you turkeys did in this special session in 2019. We want this changed. Well, maybe they're even going to define how they want it changed. But the next legislature that meets in January of 2021 in Utah, you can't bind them by what the previous vote was, and they can go and they can rewrite whatever they want, they can change what they want, they can make it more extensive. So that's a problem. They can do that on a whim. And I've got some good examples of that. That's bad examples, really. The will of the people is this, and they go and do another thing. The next thing is that whatever the referendum petition says, and that's being circulated, they will have what they've got when they get, and I think that their deadline for getting this done is done. So they've got a format they've got to abide by. Well, the Utah legislature is now in session, and they will make changes to that tax law that's different than what it was when these guys started signing their petitions. And so therefore it will be a moot issue because it's a different tax law. Can you see all the problems that are in this kind of thing? And so, and we could go on and on about it, and I don't need to take our whole time together on this thing, but each one of these principles can be applied to how the Founding Fathers did this. And so basically, I think that the tax law that they created is abominable. It was poorly thought out. They don't have a clue what's really going to cause problems or be good or bad about it. And by the way, the thing that got most of the people mad, I think, was that they were changing the sales tax on food. And people thought it was an unfair tax that's going to impose upon the poor, and all those excuses are given. But I think that's what got most people's ire up on it. And of course, there's all sorts of services now that are included that never have been before. And it is a mass of confusion. It's a bad law. It's going to be made worse, I think, during this legislative session that Utah's in. I think they're going to add to it and make it more onerous based upon I guess I should call it, what they think is their momentum that they've got. And so whatever is voted on in November really probably won't apply because it's different than what the people thought they were signing the petition for. And then whatever comes out of the November election will still be able to be modified in the January 2021 Utah legislature. So it's bad all the way around. A bad law being handled the bad way, by a way that takes it away from our founding fathers' process, creates a continuum of democracy, which will lead to the downfall of our republic. And ultimately and finally, it's not going to have any of the beneficial purposes that they hoped it would be when they were signing the petition. The real solution is to rid ourselves of those that have been so arrogant as to arrogate to themselves this power that the people are offended at. And I think the people have every right to be offended, and they should remove them from office. And that's how it should be handled, not by a citizen's petition. So I don't know if I answered all, I think it was George had all those questions, but I don't know if I answered all of them, George, but I don't like the law. It should be changed. It's done wrongly in the sense that it was poorly thought out, but the way they're trying to do it with this citizens initiative is the wrong approach to do. Let's vote those miserable souls out of office that brought it to us.
This Defending Utah presentation brought to you in part by Anderson Accounting, andersonaccounting.com, Trust Plumbing, 801-808-5470, Higher Calling Firearms, highercallingfirearms.com, Pioneer Family Scholars, Black Lotus Web Dev, blacklotuswebdev.com, American Appliance at 801-254-2566, Shem Financial Services, 801-856-6151, and the law offices of Garrett T. Smith, 801-477-1570.
It's a fact. More photos of you are being taken than ever before. Are you ashamed of your smile? At last, a new technology that gives a brighter and healthier smile in under 2 hours. And it's fully warranted, so you'll never have to worry about your smile again. Call Dr. Jeremy Thompson at Thompson Dental, 801-254-0835, or visit GoNewSmile.com, and we'll show you how you can restore your faded, yellowed, or worn teeth without surgery, crowns, or implants. And it's backed by a 30-day, 100% satisfaction money-back guarantee. This scientific breakthrough will painlessly transform your appearance in one visit. The smile you've been waiting for will never cost less or look brighter than it will today. Call 801-254-0835 or visit GoNewSmile.com. That's GONU smile.com to revitalize your smile. New smile. It looks good on you.